Okay, I'd like to start talking about some of the threads that we use for bobbin work. The first one of these is halos. This is a beautiful textured, it's a polyester metallic acrylic blend. It's got a beautiful texture to it. I do not recommend using this in the top of your machine. You can use it in a serger, but on a domestic machine I recommend that you put it in your bobbin, and you're going to flip your quilt sandwich over to do the quilting. I'll show you how to do that. When you wind a bobbin with a decorative thread, there's a couple of tips that will make it much easier. When you wind a decorative thread on the bobbin, every machine has this tension disc that you put your thread through. You want to skip the tension disc. This adds a lot of extra stress to the thread and it may shred the thread. I recommend holding the thread in your fingers and then put the thread around the bobbin like I've done here. I'm going to hit the go button and then you're going to wind it like this, and you'll notice that I'm moving my fingers up and down, and what that did is that just gave me a nice flat straight wind to this bobbin. Holding the thread in my fingers also added a little bit of tension to the thread, allowing it to stack very well in the bobbin. Now that I've wound my bobbin with my halos thread, I've put it in my bobbin case and now it's in the bottom of my machine. I've chosen to use bottom line with this thread. The red part of my quilt sandwich is the top. I have taken my quilt sandwich and turned it upside down so that the top of my quilt sandwich is now laying on the bottom. The bottom of my quilt sandwich is on the top. I am now able to quilt my design, which I've marked on the back of my quilt. My halos is being delivered through the bobbin on the top of my quilt. I've already pulled my bobbin thread up, so now I can start quilting. You've also noticed that I've decided not to use a feather motif this time. I decided to use an easier design, longer flowing lines. That's going to lend itself better to this thread. It's going to show off the beauty of this thread. You're going to just be amazed at how cool this looks. I love using the halos in the bobbin. And I really enjoyed learning how to do bobbin work too. And you can see I'm quilting just normal, even though I've got an otherwise difficult thread to use. By delivering it through the bobbin, it's a piece of cake, absolutely no problem. This is my finished piece. You'll notice that I have a long tail of thread left. This is very important. I always bury my threads at the beginning and the end, but it is critical to bury the threads when you have a decorative thread. And you can see how pretty this thread, it always lays on the top. You get the beautiful shine. The other piece that I want to show you is a piece I showed earlier with the bottom line thread. On this piece I showed you how the bottom line blended and you didn't see the thread. The part I didn't show you was the very cool back. I did this piece with all bobbin threads. The halos thread is shown in all the veins, in all the outside part of this flower, and it quilted beautifully. There was no problem. It quilted like a dream. So don't be afraid to use a decorative thread in the bobbin. Use the tips that I told you. You want to wind your bobbin using your finger. Skip this little disc here because you don't want to add the extra stress. Use a smooth polyester thread such as bottom line or a trilobal polyester such as halos. Flip your quilt sandwich over and quilt. Be sure you leave the long tails at the beginning and the end so you can tie it off and bury them so that they won't unravel.